I'm Leah Lane, an award-winning travel writer and author of Places I Remember, Tales, Truths, Delights from 100 Countries. On this podcast, we share conversations with travelers about fascinating destinations and memorable experiences around the world. Our guest is Harald Hansen, media specialist from Visit Norway's head office in Oslo. Welcome, Harald.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this.
How's the weather in Oslo today?
Today it's sunny. It's about 37, 38 degrees. I mean, spring is slowly creeping in.
Spring is coming.
Yes.
You know, I'm aware of the beauty of Norway. I've been privileged to go there. But there's so much that's new, as well as the glorious art, the glorious beauty. There's also glorious architecture. And I wanted to start off asking you, what is new in Oslo and in Norway that we wouldn't know about?
Well, over the past few years, we've had some very, innovative young architects that have started building these, we call them treetop huts, but they're not really huts. These are like, unique architectural designed buildings. Some of them are in trees. Some of them are right on the ocean front. They have luxury bathrooms and living rooms, and they give you fantastic views, and you're all there by yourself. I mean, you can bring your loved one or a family, or just go by yourself and just sit there, relax, build up your inner self, if you put it that way. And you find them all over Norway. They are like in northern Norway. We have igloos and glass igloos, and you can go there in winter. All of these places are now, available all year round, and which is, besides all the fantastic hotels and, guest houses and all of that, you have these unique buildings.
The igloos are something I want to ask you about, because everyone is interested in the Northern Lights. And where would you find these wonderful opportunities to see? What are the best places to see the Northern Lights, and what are some of the best lodgings to go to stay inside and see them?
Well, I mean, everywhere above the Arctic Circle is, of course, the best places for Northern Lights. We might have Northern Lights in southern Norway, but that's rare. So anywhere above the Arctic Circle, great places like Tromso, which is sort of the Paris of the North, as we call it, or they call themselves, because back in the 17th, 18th century, the traders went to Paris and they picked up the fashion and brought it back to Tromso. Anyway, and there are other towns like Alta and Bodø. And the good thing about it, Northern Norway is it's populated, and as opposed to maybe Northern Canada and Alaska, not to say anything bad about those places, but in Norway, people are actually living there. So you can, and because of the Gulf Stream, the coastline of Norway is ice-free. So you can sail, you can go on winter expeditions, on boats, Hurtigruten. I think Julia went with me on that one, didn't you?
Yes, I went on the mail boat. Yes, up the coast.
Yeah, that's called Hurtigruten. That was way back in the 90s, right?
Way back. Yeah, I remember very well, because it was it's called the most beautiful cruise in the world, and it was on the way up. But on the way back, unfortunately, it was all misty and you couldn't see anything. And I think that's one of the things you have to worry about a little bit when you go anywhere in the world. Sometimes, it happens, but we had a good time. We enjoyed every little
I remember.
town.
Yeah. So what you can do when you go for the Northern Lights, people love going dog sledding, reindeer safari. You go out with guides and you go hunting for the Northern Lights. It's not, of course, everybody wants to see the Northern Lights, but the fun thing about the fun is to go to chase it, because then you bring food and hot drinks and the excitement of, are we going to see Aurora tonight? So there are a lot of places above the Arctic Circle where you can stay in hotels, and as I said, these unique with ice hotels and snow hotels and beautiful lodges. So a lot has happened in the past 30 years.
Oh, yes.
Since you and I traveled.
Absolutely. One of the things about the Northern Lights in Norway is there are so many places where you can find reflections because there's so much water. And to see the Northern Lights reflected in the water for photographers is just the best. The Lofoten Islands is one place I know that people go for that.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So no, it's something that we have. I mean, we've seen a huge increase. I mean, apart from, of course, the last year, I mean, we've seen a huge increase of travelers from the US and North America coming to Norway in winter. I mean, actually, for Northern Norway, the US have become the most important market for Northern Lights, and of course, when we get back to normal, I mean, it's still going to be there.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, the dogs are waiting.
The dogs are waiting. Tell me about the fjords. The fjords, of course, are the most gorgeous places to drive and to take ferries and so forth. What one or two would you recommend if a person only had a little bit of time?
Well, I mean, I normally would say if you have not too much time, I would say go fly into Bergen. Or you can go first into Oslo and then take the train over the mountains to Bergen. So you get, over the Hardanger Plateau and national parks, and you get that beautiful nature. And then you can do day trips into the Sognefjord, which is the longest and most impressive fjords in Norway. And then you have the Queen of Fjords, which is the Hardanger Fjord, which is south of Bergen. And and all of these fjords have beautiful hotels, and some of these cabins, or whatever we call them, are actually in the fjords. So, and the difference between Norwegian fjords, I mean, of course, again, I compare with Alaska or New Zealand or Chile, they also have beautiful fjords. But the difference is that in Norway, people live in the fjords. So you have the old history, the old wooden stave churches and the old farms and the local food. So it's a living society. I mean, I haven't been to New Zealand or Chile, so I shouldn't say anything. And I'm sure they're fantastic. But from what I've learned is that since people are living there, it's a totally different experience.
Yes, the stave churches are something that I think there are only 28 of them I read that are left. But tell us a little bit about that. That's the symbol of Norway.
Well, when Norway was Christianized 1030, I guess, at the Battle of Stiklestad, I actually sent out a press release today about pilgrimage tours you can do in Norway right now. And along those routes, St. Olav's Ways, there are a lot of these wooden churches that were built right after the Christianization. So they go back to the 11th century. And they are built almost like Viking ships upside down. So, and kind of pagoda-like also. So you have this, and they're all wooden churches, and they've stayed there for, I mean, some of them are almost 1,000 years old, and they're still remaining there. So
tell me about, I read about the 18 Norwegian roads. What is that?
The Norwegian Scenic Roads, they started the project about, I would say, 20 years ago, when the Norwegian road authorities decided they picked 18 roads that are specifically scenic and where you cannot go with, huge buses or commercial traffic. And they invited architects, designers, artists to put out their art there. And so you have all these fantastic viewpoints. You have toilets. One is actually in gold, or not, it's not really gold. It's not
a gold toilet?
Yeah, we call it the golden toilet. So you find from all the way up north, way above the Arctic Circle, you find these roads that have been designated. So all along the coast and down to southern Norway, and you find rest stops, and it's also, I mean, it's meant to sort of enhance the experience of traveling around in Norway. So, I mean, the nature is beautiful, but sometimes it's nice to sort of complement the nature with something other beautiful stuff.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than to have the two together. I would love to see that. Let me ask you about polar bears, because that's another thing people love to do. There's certain bucket list things, northern lights, polar bears. Do you have them?
Oh, yeah. Not on mainland Norway. But some people think that the polar bears are walking around in the streets in our towns and cities in Norway, but that's not the fact. It could have been interesting, but on the island of Svalbard, which is halfway between mainland Norway and the North Pole, you find there are more polar bears than there are people. And but Svalbard there's a town called Longyearbyen, which was actually founded by an American called Longyear way back in time, where you now have, beautiful hotels, restaurants. We have one of the best wine cellars in Norway, located in this little town up there. And, all year round, you can actually go on expeditions. We don't call them polar bear expeditions because we're not allowed to go search for polar bears because they are protected. But of course, you will see them, but you will see them in the distance.
How are they doing in this new normal?
Yeah, Svalbard has been affected by the warming effects of, what's going on. But so far, the polar bears haven't been that much affected as we thought they would have been. But I mean, I've been to Svalbard several times, and sometimes the polar bears sort of come into town to look for food. It depends on what kind of winter there's been, but I mean, most of them are living so far away. I mean, they're okay.
Right.
And also the one thing you can do is go on a small expedition cruise, because then you're definitely not messing with the polar bears. But I remember the first time I went there, we were sitting eating, and we were sort of sailing among some islands. And suddenly, I mean, these islands were so close to the ship, and we were sailing, and I was looking at the window, and there was a polar bear with two pups, I guess they call them, or what? I don't know what they call polar bears.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
You got the gist of it. And the mother was then looking at us, and she was eating from a seal, but she was just looking there. I mean, it almost like if you went on deck, you could have touched the polar bear. So the experience, and the kids were just like looking at us, and one stood up on it behind. I mean, the leg.
Oh my goodness!
And it was like, I get goosebumps just talking about it.
Oh, it sounds terrific. Is there whale watching along the coast as well?
Yes, both on mainland Norway, of course. You mean north of Lofoten Islands. We have humpback whales, we have white whales, we have orcas, and also in Svalbard you have what do you call them? Those yellow, whitish beluga.
And what time of year? What time of year would you be?
That's summer, mostly summer. Yeah. Yes. Because when I was in Svalbard, I mean, we did this little, rib safari. I mean, in the floatable. And suddenly we had like 50 beluga whales swimming along with us. And they're the only whales who can turn their heads. So they looked at us from sideways. And it's almost like, anyway, suddenly I want to go back to Svalbard.
Oh, my gosh. Let me ask you, because Norway is a very, very long and very coastal country. It goes way above the Arctic Circle. Where do the Sami people live? Can you tell us a little? The
Samis are actually, I mean, there are more Samis living in Oslo now than they're living in northern Norway.
Oh, really?
Well, because of, things have been changing, but there are about 40,000 Samis of Sami origin in Norway. And most of them are living above the Arctic Circle, but you can find them in certain areas in southern Norway, but the majority live from Tromso up to Finnmark, where, on the Finnmark Plateau, the national park, where they live inland in the winter, And then at the end of April, they start migrating with their reindeer or moving with their reindeer out to the coast. And then they are just grazing for, the whole summer. And that's, if you go to Northern Norway, you will always meet reindeer.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
you will in winter and you will in summer, but it's fascinating. And the Samis, of course, as you say, they have their own special history and culture and very colorful, traditions, their clothing, their food. If you like Rudolph, it's the best place to go. They live off the reindeer and they live with the reindeer. So,
yes, they eat the reindeer too.
Yeah, if you
I've had some delicious reindeer.
Yeah, it is.
Can you take a tour? Are there ways to do it in a simple way to see that?
Yeah, if you go north, if you go to Finnmark, which is the county, the northernmost county, you find these towns and villages that are more or less 100% Sami, to Karasjok or Kautokeino or Alta. And in all of Northern Norway, these families have started their own, small businesses. Not commercialized, but they show their own culture. And actually, you can actually join families when they move their reindeer. It's
that's the sort of thing I like.
That's something really special. Don't expect toilets.
No toilets there.
No toilets.
Let me just ask you, I remember Oslo for its magnificent city hall. I guess it's a mid-century, I think it was finished in 1950, but
yes,
there's mosaics in it. It's just gorgeous. I know there are some new buildings in Oslo, the foodie scene, and there's some great new museums. Can you just give us a little idea of what's there now?
Absolutely. So much has happened the past 20 years. The Oslo Opera House opened in 2008, which is sort of that really put Oslo on the map. Suddenly it was like, okay, what's happening with Oslo? And it sort of created a buzz. So now they built up, the new Munch Museum will open later this year, which is also down by the Oslo Opera House. And we just opened up a new library called Deichman, which is next to the Opera House. So the whole waterfront area has totally changed from when you were there. There is no commercial areas anymore. Now not like, commercial, industrial, whatever. Right. Now it's waterfronts with shops and bars and restaurants and art galleries. And
that's great to hear. That's wonderful to see it revive. Yeah.
Yeah. Oslo has really become a sort of the new Nordic.
And Bergen has the beautiful warehouses along the water side. Is it also becoming a foodie haven and all of that sort of thing?
Bergen has really become really popular now just because of these new chefs that have started, opening their restaurants, and they go out in the morning and they catch their own food. So there's a lot of seafood. And a friend of mine actually opened a restaurant maybe not even 10 years ago. And he used to work for the best restaurants in New York. And then he moved home and started up this, they call it the Nordic cuisine with MoMA in Copenhagen, but we call it the Fjordic cuisine.
Fjordic.
So, yeah, to make us a little different from the other.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's better, but it's different. And I think we should all concentrate on what's unique for us.
I think your country is unique in beauty, and it sounds like it's also becoming a really hip, or whatever the word is now, a great place to visit for other reasons as well. The name of the podcast is Places I Remember, and I like to ask about a memory that you'd like to share. I have one that I'd share first, and then if you can think of one special memory. Mine is sort of memorable because it was difficult, because I was on the fjords with my family many years ago, 2 young sons and my husband. We were taking a little ferry boat across a small fjord, And we were getting off the ferry, and my husband went ahead with the car, and I stayed behind to tie my son's shoes. And then when I went to get off the ferry, I noticed we were moving, and my husband was left on the shoreline. So, oh my goodness, I was with two little babies, no diapers, no passports, nothing. So I ran to the captain, and he said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to go all the way around today. You'll see him at the end of the day." And I was so worried that he wouldn't be there, that he would go off somewhere and I'd never see him again. But my kids had a great time because the captain gave them chocolate and all that. I was worried for 8 hours, but we got back, and it was a memorable reunion. But that's my memory of the fjords beyond the beauty. How about you?
Sometimes it's hard to sort of come up what comes to mind, but I think this is like not that many years ago, and I actually traveled with a group of journalists, and we were doing like the historic hotels of Norway. It's a group of hotels that are old wooden buildings that have been renovated, and we flew in from Oslo to a town called Ålesund, and we were picked up at the airport and told we were going to do a rib safari out to a bird island. Little bit when the luggage was taken to this place where we were going to stay for the night, and we went on the boat, and I would say we varied in fitness and sizes, and and yes,
I know.
Yes, without. So okay, so we started sailing out into the North Sea, and lo and behold, it was pretty windy, and suddenly the waves started coming in, and we were sailing very fast, and people were like holding on for their bare life. And suddenly I just felt like a whoosh, and I was overboard.
Oh my goodness. You were overboard.
I was overboard. Thank heavens it was me. But I didn't feel much better because of it. But, here I was like, just seeing, these waves all around over me. But they managed to stop the boat and get me on board again. But we were so far out, and there was, we just had to finish the trip. And we saw the birds and everything, and it was another hour and a half.
How cold was the water?
Pretty cold. Pretty cold. It was early summer. So, and then we finally got back towards land, and we were sailing into a fjord, and it was becoming beautiful. And we docked near an old historic hotel from the 1790s with a ghost. And they rushed me in, and I got to dry myself off. And then we were getting these our rooms. And of course, these rooms were fantastic. It was like kings and queens have visited this hotel and stayed in it. And because of my little incident, I got the best room.
Oh, good.
So, but it was haunted.
Oh,
so
good news, bad news.
Yes.
One of those days.
I woke up in the middle of the morning, and I was sure that the young girl was, visiting me again.
Sounds like you had a very interesting day.
Yes.
Anyway, I have to say, Allison, by the way, Allison is a beautiful town. If you love Art Nouveau architecture, I think there was a fire around 1904, was it? One of those years. Yeah, yes. And it's just all Art Nouveau, and they call it, I can't pronounce the way.
Jugendstil.
Jugendstil. It's so pretty. So that I have to say as well. But well, you can see even with difficulties, Norway is a very special place. I thank you so much, Harald Hansen.
Thank you.
And I hope to be there again soon.
Me too. Let me know.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to our award-winning podcast. We've recorded over 100 episodes of Places I Remember, so follow us on any podcast app. And new monthly episodes are also on YouTube with gorgeous video. My book, Places I Remember, is available in print and Kindle, and I read the audio version. Follow my travel writing at Forbes.com. Contact me at the links in the show notes or on my website, placesiremember, lealane.com, and keep making your own travel memories.